At least 6 people shot this weekend, 3 of them killed in one shooting. The frustration from Mayor Scott as the city struggles to control violent crime. What are lawmakers doing to make a difference? Looking into what's holding up crime bills in Annapolis as police arrest a teen for a triple shooting there. The Boost program is here to stay. The impact one lawmaker says it will have on changing kids' lives.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
We are following breaking news. The violence continues tonight after 6 people were shot yesterday, leaving 3 dead from one incident. Well, tonight, a double shooting in northeast Baltimore happened just after 7:30 on Elmora Avenue near Bel Air Road. A 23-year-old was grazed in the ankle and a second unidentified man was shot in the back. Both were taken to the hospital where the man who was shot in the back is in critical condition. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. We start with the continuing violence in parts of Baltimore City after a deadly weekend. Last night, 3 people were killed in a quadruple shooting and a 4th was left in critical condition. Mayor Scott on the scene of that shooting saying the violence has to end.
We have to resolve our basic human conflict in a different way, not being a coward, pulling out a gun because we don't know how to resolve conflict.
Well, as the city leaders struggle to get crime under control, Baltimore residents are suffering. Fox 45's Vincent Hill has the latest on the efforts from City Hall to get a grip on crime.
A violent start to April in Baltimore. Multiple shootings Saturday and several gunmen on the loose.
A sunny and warm Saturday afternoon, quickly turning to a busy day for Baltimore police with 7 people shot in the span of 8 hours. The first around 3:30. A 25-year-old man and a 38-year-old man shot, one of them multiple times. Then around 8:45.
Is anyone on the crime scene? Is that 32? They come on the crime scene.
A crime scene, Mayor Brandon Scott calling one of the most sickening things he's ever seen.
This is one of the most disgusting things that I've seen in my time in elected office.
The mayor not going into much detail as to why, saying it would soon be clear.
Because the investigation is just starting. We don't give out any details on that. We'll let you know. You'll find out why very quickly.
Baltimore police giving a glimpse into just how bad it may have been.
2 victims were pronounced deceased at the scene. 2 additional victims were taken to the hospital where they immediately went into surgery. 1 additional victim was pronounced deceased at the hospital, and the 4th victim is currently in surgery in critical condition.
That shooting took the lives of a 41-year-old man, a 49-year-old man, and a 69-year-old man, leaving a 31-year-old female clinging to life, and the mayor asking for accountability.
Own up to the disgusting thing that you did tonight over some petty dispute.
While Baltimore police were still wrapping up that crime scene a few miles away,
lower back into a stern.
Another shooting, leaving a 31-year-old man in critical condition.
I'm looking for showcases now.
The mayor giving a speech he's given time and time again as more gunfire erupted in another part of the city.
We have to resolve our basic human conflict in a different way, not being a coward, pulling out a gun because we don't know how to resolve conflict.
Now, you may remember back on March 23rd, 11 people were shot in one day, including 6 in a mass shooting in the 2800 block of Edmondson Avenue. At BPD headquarters, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Well, the crime crisis extends far beyond this city. A 16-year-old in Annapolis arrested today for their alleged role in a triple shooting. Happened yesterday afternoon, just after 12:30 on Melrob Court. While police were investigating the scene, 2 17-year-old boys and 1 20-year-old brought themselves to a nearby hospital. All of them had been shot. Today, officers arrested a 16-year-old for the shooting. He is facing attempted first-degree murder charges. Despite being charged as an adult, police are not identifying him because the case may still be remanded back to juvenile court. Youth crime and the crime crisis in general have been top priorities in Annapolis this legislative session, but time is running out to pass meaningful policies. Tonight, the future is uncertain for 3 bills focused on curbing violence. Senate Bill 564 makes the theft of any handgun a felony. House Bill 952, the Repeat Violent Offenders Act, increases fines and jail time for gun crimes. It also closes a loophole in which drug dealers get a lighter sentence than somebody convicted for the same offense. And House Bill 481, or Ivan Bates's bill, it would increase the maximum jail time from 3 to 5 years for those older than 21 convicted of illegally possessing a handgun. Now, most sentenced to jail of a misdemeanor only serve 25%. The bill would guarantee anybody getting the maximum spends at least 1 year in lockup. Bates says he needs it to send a message to criminals.
I've gone to too many funerals. I've gone to and watched too many people and young boys and young men and young kids and young ladies who look like me and you that are dying and losing their life.
I understand the wraparound services, and I agree with that. And I don't want to see mass incarceration, but we will see accountability.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Should lawmakers call a special session to tackle the crime crisis? So far, 97% of voters say yes. You can still make your voice heard by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Well, when it comes to education, Fox 45 News has found leaders both in Baltimore and Annapolis have listened to public outcry. Here in the city, Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, a public charter school threatened with closure, got a reprieve from commissioners. And this past week, members of the House and Senate reached a compromise to keep a state-funded scholarship program for low-income families, despite calls from Governor Moore to phase it out. Fox 45's Taylor Stewart has the latest.
A victory for Maryland families who need help when it comes to sending their children to private school.
They cut the language to end the program. So this is really great.
Lawmakers reaching a $9 million compromise to save the Boost Scholarship Program, despite Governor Wes Moore's request for cuts and eventual plans to eliminate the aid.
The most scholarships are in Baltimore County, followed by Baltimore City. This Boost program is huge. It helps kids in failing schools find a way out.
The fight to save the pot of money Schliger refers to as a drop in the bucket when it comes to Maryland's education budget, ramping up around the time the Maryland Department of Education released its tri-annual report on school performance.
Project Baltimore has reported over and over 23 city schools with 0 kids proficient in math. We have a governor who knows that and says, in his book that his success is largely owed to his non-public school.
Governor Moore, who attended a private school, proposed cutting $2 million from the state's only school-funded choice option.
Public dollars should not be going to private schools.
Critics pushed back on that comment, citing public funds go to private endeavors all the time. Then, in his own party.
This is a program that I personally have evolved on.
Senate President Bill Ferguson offering his support for the program in early March.
As I've seen families and young people really have incredible benefits.
The most recent data shows $3 million of Boost scholarships have been awarded to families in Baltimore City, providing a partial scholarship to attend private or parochial schools. For thousands of students in the city and county, Boost is a lifeline they can count on for now.
Unfortunately, is something that we're going to have to fight for every year. The public schools get $9 billion a year or more. I mean, as the new education program phases in, it'll be much more from state money. And this program gets $9 million.
The committee is also proposing an additional $5 million to bolster safety, health, and tutoring options for students in this program. A final vote for that amendment is scheduled for Monday. Taylor Stewart, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News is making your voice heard. Scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you to our website where we put together a list of email addresses and phone numbers of your state senators and delegates, including House Speaker and Senate President. New tonight, a deadly car crash in Anne Arundel County. A viewer sent us video of the scene in Glen Burnie outside of the Marley Station Mall. According to police, just before 1 this afternoon, witnesses saw a Toyota run a red light and hit 2 cars, a Chevy and a BMW. A passenger in the Chevy was killed and the driver was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the BMW was not injured. The man driving the Toyota, 35-year-old Pedro Beltran, was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. He is facing multiple charges tonight, including manslaughter and driving under the influence. He also had a 13-year-old boy in his car during the crash. The child suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Well, we are continuing to see damage from the intense wind across Maryland tonight. Take a look at this. A tree completely uprooted, falling on a home in Rosedale. According to the viewer who sent it in, no one was hurt by that tree. And it just wasn't wind that was threatening Marylanders over the weekend. Many had to deal with hail. You can see and hear ice pounding the windshield and of an emergency vehicle while responding to this downed tree in Aberdeen yesterday. It fell right on the home's front door area. One person was inside, but they were not injured. And a little further east, Cameron Goff shared this video from his dad's front yard in Delaware. This is in the Bridgeville area. You can see the start of a funnel cloud, a tornado just outside their neighborhood. Now, Sussex County officials in Delaware say one person was killed by a tornado when a structure collapsed after the tornado gained momentum and hit a neighborhood in Greenwood, damaging several buildings. Well, thankfully, things have calmed down today. While we still saw some strong wind, weather advisories were lifted today. The sun was out. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers here now with what to expect as we head into the week.
Yeah, pretty incredible weather last night, and even a little bit closer to home. It was an EF1 tornado now confirmed. They did a damage survey out in Cecil County, the area right around Calvert in Cecil County. And this occurred between 6:35 and 6:41 yesterday evening. If you remember, there was a tornado warning for that. This was an EF1 with some peak winds at 90 miles an hour. There's your path up right against the Pennsylvania and Delaware line. So almost out of our area, kind of in the far stretches and far reaches. But nonetheless, there was some damage. Then after that, winds themselves picked up as a cold front came through Dundalk, up to nearly 70-mile-an-hour winds. I believe the Bay Bridge was even closed for a time last night with winds up to about 70. 63 at BWI, some damage in that area. Bowley's Quarters at 61, Manchester, Elkridge, and Jarrettsville, all at about 45 to 50-mile-an-hour gusts. Overnight tonight, the winds continue to calm, and it gets cold. You may even have some frost to deal with. We do have some frost advisories. I'll let you know where and when it's going to warm up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Jonathan, thank you. We want you to help us tell the weather stories in your area. Send us pictures or videos. Scan the QR code on your screen now or head to foxbaltimore.com/chime-in. Tornadoes ripping through the South, destroying homes and taking lives. The latest on the recovery efforts after a tragic weekend.
I'm Christine Frizzell with a closer look at the unprecedented indictment of a former president. What to expect in the days ahead.
Well, tonight the country is watching and waiting for Tuesday. That is when former President Donald Trump is expected to be arraigned on multiple charges in court, likely stemming from an alleged hush money payment to an adult film star. Christine Frizzell reports.
New York City preparing for one of the most high-profile arraignments in history, set for Tuesday. But even before the indictment is unsealed, new evidence the case against former President Donald Trump could be expanding and may include payments to former Playboy model Karen McDougal.
There are other documents from other people and other testimony from other people, some of it direct, involving conversations with Mr. Trump concerning the Karen McDougal crime.
But accusations his client, Michael Cohen, has lied about this case are piling up. Some with high-level legal backgrounds predicting the indictment is purely political.
It's the very essence of the abuse of the prosecutive function, which is pursuing a person rather than pursuing a real crime.
Based on what we know about this case, it may be one of the weakest cases in my 60 years of experience.
But the former Manhattan district attorney, told to stand down when he was pursuing the hush money case because Donald Trump was still president, argues the pursuit of Trump's financial records has already been litigated.
By two separate district courts, two separate courts of appeal, and twice by the United States Supreme Court, all of whom found no evidence that politics was motivating our actions.
Donald Trump, meanwhile, seeing a new bump in the polls, raising more than $5 million since news of the indictment broke.
I want this to be done as smoothly and quickly as possible and begin this fight to really put justice back on course to the degree we can.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's heading to New York City on Tuesday to protest as other lawmakers urge caution and calm.
It's a very sad time for America to go through what we're going through now. And, you know, people being divided and they think that the justice might be biased.
As far as additional reaction from Capitol Hill, well, it will be muted since lawmakers will be back home in their districts for the next couple weeks. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
Concerns tonight about what comes next in the legal process regarding the historic indictment. You heard former Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz describe the case as weak, but he also worried the location could lead to an unfair trial.
There's no possibility he can get a fair trial in Manhattan, a borough that went, over 80, close to 90% against Trump. The case has to be moved to a place like Staten Island or upstate New York.
There are also concerns over protests in New York City this week. NYPD already preparing the streets surrounding the Manhattan courthouse where Trump is expected to appear for his arraignment. Well, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson has thrown his hat in the ring for the GOP presidential nomination. In an interview airing on ABC's This Week, Hutchinson called on the former president to drop out of the race following his indictment.
Do you believe that now that he's been indicted? Should he drop out?
Well, I do. First of all, the office is more important than any individual person. And so for the sake of the office of the presidency, I do think that's too much of a sideshow and distraction, and he needs to be able to concentrate on his due process, and there is a presumption of innocence.
In addition to Trump, Hutchinson joins a Republican field that also includes former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and former Vice President Mike Pence, just a few of the several still considering bids. So far, author Marianne Williamson is the only Democrat to announce a presidential campaign, but President Biden has hinted he intends to run for re-election. Tennessee authorities say 2 children and 1 adult were killed after a tree fell on a Memphis home Saturday. That brings the total number of those killed by Friday's storms to 32 across 7 states. Storms spawned more than 50 tornadoes, causing widespread damage across the South and the Midwest. Some neighborhoods were completely leveled, as you can see. Victims were also reported in Arkansas, Indiana, and Illinois. Hundreds of thousands of people are still without power tonight across the South and the Midwest.
Well, those poor folks there, prayers for them. And of course, that same weather maker coming through here with some severe weather yesterday. Behind it now, cold air. So a frost advisory area wide tonight into early tomorrow morning, with temperatures expected in the 30s, and they're already well on their way. If you do have some tender plants outside that you either put outside to go ahead and plant those, or they're actually in the ground, they either have to be covered over or they have to be brought back in. Toyota Asian Harbor Skycam, it's a crisp feel to things with 46. Winds are calm, humidity 38%. Boy, isn't that a sight for sore eyes? Calm winds. The dew point now at 22, so continuing to dry and chill overnight. And also nice and calm, too, after the storms we had yesterday. The winds up to 60, 65 miles an hour in gusts, even breezy this morning. But the breezes, the winds, they've been calming down and coming down all day long. Although today, high temperature is only at about 57. Tomorrow, we're going to tack on another about 10 degrees. Right now, it's 37 at Elkton. We've got a 46 here in Baltimore, 42 at Columbia, 41 at Frederick. Out on the eastern shore, Denton now at 39 and 44 at Stevensville. There's a warmth. It's just on the doorstep, so we're going to evict all this cold air late tonight and tomorrow, and temperatures really going to have a nice recovery by tomorrow afternoon after, again, those frost advisories into tomorrow morning. Now, out to our west, boy, more active weather. Got a system here, weather maker, with a tornado watch that's down into Texas. Another big storm coming into the western U.S. Winter storm watches and warnings, high wind warnings, high wind watches. And that system gradually moving east, but it's going to take time to get here. Clear, chilly for tonight. Again, almost kind of cold. You're going to need some jackets tomorrow morning. There's that next system slung out across the western and central United States. But again, a little bit of time to watch that one until it gets here by the end of the week. Future scan overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. There's your cold. Temperature settling down well into the 30s to right around 40. By about 8 a.m., you may be doing some scraping of the car windows, and into the afternoon, quickly through the 50s into the 60s to near 70 potentially for tomorrow afternoon. 35 chilly, frosty tonight, 68 tomorrow. Clouds and sun, beautiful day. Your 7-day forecast, warmer day for Tuesday. After 68 Monday, we go to 76 Tuesday, near 80 on Wednesday. Could see some spot showers, maybe even a couple of thunderstorms into Thursday. Sun, breezy for Friday, 63. Easter weekend, Saturday, sunshine, 64 and Easter. Spot shower too, but seasonable with highs around 62.
Jonathan, thank you. Well, back to work the day after leaving the hospital. The latest on the Pope's recovery ahead of Holy Week. Another train derails, the response from federal leaders as concerns over rail safety grow. Pope Francis presided over Palm Sunday Mass in St. Peter's Square just the day after leaving the hospital. The pontiff was hospitalized earlier in the week for bronchitis. Palm Sunday, of course, marks the start of Holy Week celebrations in the Christian calendar leading up to Easter next Sunday. And also making headlines tonight, another train derailment, this one in Montana. Take a look at these pictures. At least 25 freight cars fell into a riverbank 200 miles north of Bozeman. According to the local sheriff's department there, did not appear to be any hazardous materials on board and no one was hurt. It's unclear at this point what caused the derailment. Train derailments have been an issue across the country this year. First, a train carrying hazardous chemicals derailed in Ohio, forcing residents near the site to evacuate and kickstart a month-long recovery effort that is still underway. Then just last week, a train carrying ethanol and corn syrup derailed in Minnesota. That train also caught fire and forced nearby residents to evacuate, though the environmental impact was not as severe as the Ohio crash. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg said this week, promising to do more to make sure the country's railways are safe.
The reason that we're pushing so hard on railroad safety is to make sure there are fewer of these incidents. This happens more often than I think most Americans realize.
A bipartisan group in Congress proposing legislation that enhances federal oversight of freight trains. Environmental, social, and governance investing, breaking down why some are trying to steer social policy with where they put their money and the pushback they're seeing. Building positive relationships in the community, taking a look at an event today where law enforcement tried to connect with kids by fishing. A controversial strategy many financial institutions have been engaging in. It's called ESG. It stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. Full Measure Cheryl Atkinson reports on the growing backlash.
We start in San Francisco, home of the largest environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, mutual fund company, Parnassus Investments. It manages about $40 billion in assets. Marion McIndoe heads ESG stewardship at Parnassus.
ESG is a way of investing that takes into consideration governance factors, environmental factors, and social factors.
McIndoe differentiates between what Parnassus does, searching for wise investments with places that follow environmental, social, and governance principles, and something called impact investing, which may include pressuring customers into action. She says Parnassus has advocated for new government rules requiring companies to report their climate change policies. But she says Parnassus doesn't do impact investing, trying to change policies of investors. But many other companies do, and that's a problem, says John Schroeder.
I get your ability as an independently owned company to push the policies that you like. Just don't force it down my throat. And then
Schroeder is Louisiana's state treasurer, managing a $64 billion cash flow. He noticed the environmental, social, and governance hard sell, he says, shortly after he took office in late 2017. It arrived in the form of letters from Citibank and Bank of America.
And these banks wanted to basically force us to have certain policies in Louisiana. It was over gun licensing and permitting, and you had to be 21 to carry. And
Schroeder and his team made a big decision. They flipped the ESG script. Louisiana began requiring the big financial players to pass a test. Louisiana's questionnaire identifies 3 deal breakers. Does the company have policies to boycott Israel, restrict firearms or discriminate against those who own them, or restrict business with anyone in the fossil fuel industry?
You answer the questions, you can negotiate with the state. You don't answer the questions, I take that as you didn't want to do business with the state of Louisiana.
What is your take on the backlash against ESG?
Well, I think it's unfortunate. I think that we have more in common than what divides us on these issues. Even if you don't believe in climate change, which I do, you can believe in climate change regulation and the impact that that's going to have as we transition away as a globe away from a fossil fuel-based system.
President Biden installed a rule urging private retirement plans to factor in ESG when deciding where to invest money for 150 million Americans. Congress tried to reverse that, but Biden recently used his first veto to keep the pro-ESG policy in place. For Full Measure, I'm Cheryl Atkinson.
And you can watch Full Measure Sundays on Fox 45 at 10 a.m. If not for a dropped fly ball, we would have been talking about an O-Series win. Coming up next on Sports Unlimited, why a season start in Boston did not go as planned. Well, take a look at this. The Baltimore County Police Department connecting with kids by teaching them how to fish. Officers and kids in the community met at Hillcrest Pond in Lansdowne, where they spent the day enjoying the outdoors. A little chilly, but a fun event.
It's important to us because we build those relationships, those positive relationships with the police, and also so that they can get some positivity in the world. Expose them to fishing, and hopefully they continue fishing. That's my goal.
The Baltimore County Police Department hopes this can become an annual event. Well, that's all for the news at 10. I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you so much for watching. Morgan Atzett and Rocco DeSangro join us now with Sports Unlimited. Morgan and Rocco.
Thank you, Mary. Coming up tonight on Sports Unlimited, we have a Sunday full of Orioles baseball. And by this time next week, ball is back at Camden Yards.
Cannot wait. The O's open the season in Boston, and while they're only one series into the new season, not the way they wanted to start defensively or with pitching.
No, and one arm can't take the fall for the series loss at Boston. Grayson Rodriguez, the O's top pitching prospect, left off the opening day roster and got his start in AAA. We'll break down why his major league debut is once again delayed.
While we're talking pitching, defense and pitching struggled in the first 3 games of the year. There were some positives, though. Baseball insider Ryan Ripken shares his biggest takeaways from that series in Boston.
And put a ring on Angel Reese's hand, the St. Francis Academy product and former Terp led LSU to its first national championship. Sports Unlimited starts after this.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Sports Unlimited. She's Morgan Atzett. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Baseball is back, but we still have to wait a few more days for its return to Baltimore. Just a bit. Thursday's home opener.
Yeah, the Orioles opened the season at Boston, where 23 runs were not